Sometimes, an ordinary day turns into a living nightmare, and you're left facing a horror you can't escape. They thought it was just harmless stories about schools and forests, but this time, everything really happened. Students disappeared, strangers appeared, and terrifying moments unfolded. We bring you 5 terrifying real-life stories, ones they'll never forget, and neither will you. Story 1. Who was he, and why was he waiting for me? This became one of the scariest moments of my life. I was in high school back then, around 16 years old. It was supposed to be just another ordinary Monday. I woke up feeling strange. My stomach was cramping as if I had swallowed something wrong, but I forced myself to get up and go to school, thinking it was nothing serious. By midday, my stomach got worse. Not only the pain, but I started feeling sick inside. I couldn't hold it anymore. While the teacher was talking, I suddenly stood up and rushed into the hallway, running toward the restroom. At that moment, I wasn't thinking about anything except making it to the bathroom on time. But I didn't know this wasn't going to be just a normal bathroom break. As I ran through the hallway, I started hearing a faint sound, a whistle. At first I thought it was just the wind, or maybe someone messing around. But as I got closer to the restroom, the whistling grew louder. I brushed it off, thinking, probably just someone else inside. No big deal. But when I pushed open the door, something felt off. There, standing by the sink, was a man. He had his back turned to me and was softly whistling. He didn't look like a student. He didn't even look like a regular staff member. His clothes looked old, almost like an outdated janitor's uniform, and the way he stood, completely still except for his slow whistling, it sent a cold chill down my spine. I didn't want to freak myself out, so I quickly entered one of the stalls and locked the door. My heart was racing, but I told myself, relax, just do your business and leave. But he didn't leave. The whole time I was in the stall, I could hear him outside, whistling. 5 minutes passed. Then 10, I finished, but I didn't dare move for a while. It felt like he was waiting for me to come out. Finally, I built up the courage and slowly opened the stall door. I walked toward the sink, trying my best not to look directly at him. My hands were shaking as I turned on the water, but when I glanced sideways, he was staring right at me. My stomach dropped. The man's eyes, sharp, hollow, almost lifeless. His messy hair hung over his face. I tried to ignore him, pretending everything was normal. I washed my hands quickly, hoping to get out fast. But then, he took a step forward, just one single step toward me. And with that step, it felt like the entire room froze. He leaned closer and whispered, "I want to talk to you." I couldn't breathe. I whispered, "What?" Barely getting the word out, he smiled. That smile, it wasn't normal. It was a dead, frozen smile, like something from a nightmare. I bolted for the door without even drying my hands. I ran out of the restroom, like my life depended on it. My heart was pounding, so hard I thought it would explode. The hallway felt endless as I sprinted back toward my classroom. But when I reached the door, I froze. The classroom lights were off. The door was locked. I knocked softly. No answer. That's when I noticed the hallway was completely empty. Not a single student, not a single teacher. It felt like the entire school had just disappeared. A creeping chill crawled up my back. And then I heard it, that whistling, again. It echoed softly through the hallway. I slowly turned my head, and there he was, standing at the end of the corridor, halfway hidden behind a locker, his eyes locked onto mine, his mouth slowly moving as he whistled that same eerie tune. I stood frozen for a second, panic crashing over me. I ran as fast as I could down the opposite hallway. I took random turns trying to lose him, but the whistling never stopped. Every time I thought I was safe, I'd hear it again, closer. It was like he knew every corner I'd turn. Finally, I reached the main entrance doors. I grabbed the handles. They wouldn't budge. Locked. I slammed my fists against them, yelling for help. No answer. I turned around, and my heart stopped. He was standing right behind me, so close, I could see the yellow of his teeth as he smiled. I felt like I couldn't move. My entire body refused to listen. And then, a loud voice boomed through the speakers. Attention, internal lockdown. All students proceed to the nearest classroom. Immediately. This is not a drill. The emergency alarm echoed through the hallways. In that split second, the man just walked away, calmly, slowly, as if nothing happened. I ran straight to the office, not stopping for a second. When I got there, a teacher grabbed me and pulled me inside. "Where have you been?" "The school's on lockdown. There's a suspicious person on campus." I couldn't even answer. I just sat down on the floor, shaking. But the worst part? When the police searched the school, they never found him. And even now, I still hear that whistling in my nightmares. Story 2. We thought it was just a shortcut, but the forest had other plans. It started like every other Friday after school. Me, Marcus, and Dylan, 3 best friends, who always stuck together. We had a habit of taking the forest trail behind our school whenever we hung out. It wasn't exactly safe, but it saved us at least 20 minutes of walking time. And besides, we liked the thrill of it. The tall, endless trees, the muddy, narrow path, the way the wind seemed to whisper whenever you stepped too deep into the woods. It gave us a rush. We felt like we owned the forest. That day was cloudy, colder than usual. The wind was sharper, and the sky had that weird, dull gray that made everything look darker. But we didn't care. We were 15, fearless. We hopped the school fence like always and started down the dirt path. We laughed, talked trash, threw small sticks at each other, the usual. But as we walked deeper into the woods, the atmosphere changed. I don't know exactly when it started. It felt like the wind had died down, like the air itself got heavier. None of us said anything, but we all felt it. The silence. Even the birds weren't chirping anymore. I was just about to make a joke when Dylan suddenly stopped walking. "What's that?" he said. We looked ahead and then froze. Standing on the path, about 20 feet in front of us, was a man. At first it looked like he was facing away. He was wearing old clothes, dirty jeans, a flannel shirt. His skin looked pale, but something was off. Marcus whispered, "Why isn't he moving?" And the man just stood there, completely still, not breathing, not blinking. And then his head twisted, not turned, twisted, almost a full 180 degrees, until his face was staring directly at us, without his body moving. I swear I could feel my heart slam against my ribs. The man smiled, his lips cracked, stretching wider than they should. And then, slowly, he raised his hand and pointed at us. We didn't wait. All 3 of us bolted in the opposite direction. We ran like hell, crashing through the undergrowth. Branches whipped against our faces. Thorns cut our hands. But the worst part, as we ran, we heard footsteps behind us. Slow at first, then faster and faster. And then in whispering, it sounded like 100 voices. But when we looked back, there was no one. Only the forest and that horrible, empty silence. We kept running. At some point, Dylan tripped and fell, but Marcus grabbed him, yanked him up. We didn't speak. We didn't stop. Until finally, we burst out of the trees and into the neighborhood. We stopped, gasping for air, bending over with our hands on our knees. For a second, none of us said a word. And then Marcus looked back at the woods and whispered, "Did you hear what they said?" I shook my head. He swallowed hard and whispered, "They said, 'We see you.'" That night, none of us could sleep. I kept hearing those whispers replaying in my head. "We see you," over and over again. I texted Marcus around midnight. He replied instantly, "Marcus, dude, I'm not crazy, right? That really happened?" I stared at the screen, unsure how to answer, because even though every part of me wanted to believe it was just our imagination, deep down, I knew it wasn't. At 2 a.m., I got another text, this time from Dylan. "Dylan, look outside your window." My stomach dropped. I got up slowly, walked toward my bedroom window, and when I pulled the curtain aside, I froze. At the edge of the woods behind my house stood a figure, motionless, exactly like before. It was too dark to see his face, but I didn't have to. I knew it was him, the same man, standing perfectly still, staring straight at my window. I slammed the curtain shut and locked it. My heart pounded so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "I see him too," he whispered. "He's outside my house." I couldn't breathe. "What the hell is happening?" I whispered. Just then, Dylan added us both to a group call. He sounded like he was about to cry. He's outside mine too. 3 different houses, 3 different places. And that thing was outside each of them at the same time. We didn't know what to do. We stayed on the phone the entire night, too scared to even move. At some point, we all agreed, tomorrow morning, we'd go back to the forest. We needed answers. We had to see for ourselves if this was real or if we were losing our minds. The next day, Saturday, at exactly 8 a.m., we met at the edge of the woods. None of us spoke much. We just walked slowly, carefully, deeper into the trees. The deeper we went, the colder it got. We could feel it in our bones, like the forest itself was watching us. After walking for almost 20 minutes, we saw it. In the clearing ahead, 3 trees, tall, dead, blackened like they'd been burned. And on each tree, a name was carved into the bark. Marcus, Dylan, me. Our names. We stared, frozen in shock. Then, from the shadows, behind the trees, that same man stepped out. Only this time, there were more of them. Men, women, even children. Dozens of them. All silent, all staring. We ran. We didn't look back. We just ran. We never spoke about it again. We moved away, left the town. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear them whisper, "We see you." Story 3. The emergency lockdown was only the beginning. It was supposed to be a normal school day. Boring classes, half-eaten lunch, the usual jokes with friends. But that afternoon, everything changed. We were in the cafeteria, messing around like always. I remember clearly, my best friend Andrew had just thrown a balled-up napkin at me when the school's PA system crackled to life. "Attention, this is an internal emergency. Lockdown. Students and staff follow procedures immediately." At first, we thought it was a drill, but the principal's voice, it didn't sound like a drill. It was shaky, panicked. The light suddenly went out. A wave of nervous laughter rolled over the cafeteria. Some kids even cheered. But I had this feeling deep in my gut. Something wasn't right. I whispered to Andrew, "Let's stay low." But our friends had a different idea. They thought it would be funny, even daring, to sneak out of the cafeteria and wander the dark halls. I don't know why, but I followed them. It was stupid. Probably the dumbest thing we ever did. The hallways were darker than I imagined. So dark we had to feel the walls as we walked. The faint gray light from the windows barely lit the way. We moved quietly, holding our breath when we heard a door creak. Then, after a few minutes of creeping around, we split up. Andrew stayed with me. The others disappeared down different corridors. We kept walking, trying not to laugh at how ridiculous this was until we heard it. 3 loud gunshots, close, too close. Then came the screaming. That's when the reality hit us. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a drill. There was someone inside the school with a gun. We bolted. We didn't stop to think, didn't stop to look. We sprinted toward the main entrance, but then we realized if we went outside, we'd be sitting ducks. If we stayed inside, we could be hunted. We froze at the double doors, not knowing what to do. And that's when Andrew said, his voice shaking, "Let's run for the woods." There was a soccer field behind the school that led straight into the forest. It wasn't far, maybe a minute of running. We didn't think twice. We burst out the doors and tore across the field, our hearts slamming in our chests. We reached the tree line and disappeared into the woods, breathless, terrified, but safe for now. Or at least that's what we thought. We didn't know that the real nightmare was waiting for us in those dark, silent trees. The forest swallowed us whole the moment we crossed the field. Thick trees towered over us, their branches twisted like bony fingers, clawing at the gray sky. The light faded fast, and within minutes, we were wrapped in shadows. Andrew and I stopped running only when we couldn't hear anything but our own ragged breaths. I leaned against a tree, clutching my side. "You think we're safe?" Andrew gasped. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe we had outrun whatever Horror was inside the school, but something in the air, it felt wrong. It was too quiet. No birds, no wind, not even the distant sounds of the town. Just silence, heavy, crushing. We stood there, staring at each other. Then Andrew pointed. Farther into the woods, maybe 50 yards away, we saw movement. At first, I thought it was an animal, until I saw the silhouette, a tall figure, standing perfectly still between the trees, watching us. Is that? Andrew whispered. Before he could finish, the figure moved, not walked, not ran. It glided, smoothly, quietly, straight toward us. We turned and ran deeper into the forest. Branches scratched at our arms and faces. Roots snagged our shoes, but we didn't stop. My mind raced. Who was that? Was it the shooter or something worse? We kept running until the trees finally opened into a small clearing. For a moment I felt relief. We could see the sky again. We could breathe. But then Andrew froze, and I did too. There, in the middle of the clearing, was a man. Not the same one from before. This one was even taller, wearing dark clothes soaked in mud. His head tilted slightly, like he was studying us. His eyes black, empty. No whites, no pupils, just darkness. I whispered, "Andrew, what is this?" The man smiled, slow, wide. Then we heard footsteps behind us. We spun around. Another man, standing at the edge of the trees. Same clothes, same empty eyes. Another set of footsteps, to our right. And then another. They were surrounding us. Andrew grabbed my arm. "We have to run, now!" We bolted again, this time toward the only gap left between the men. We sprinted through it, expecting to be grabbed at any second. But nothing happened. We didn't stop. We ran until our legs burned. Finally, we stumbled out of the forest, right onto an old gravel road. We collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. When I looked back, the forest stood silent behind us. The figures were gone, as if they were never there. We ran all the way to the police station. After that, reported everything, but no one believed us. They said no one was found inside the school. No shooter, no intruders. And the woods, they told us, that area had been abandoned for years, and no one lived there. But Andrew and I, we know what we saw. And sometimes late at night, when I look out my window, I swear I see them standing in the tree line, waiting. Story 4, The Endless Trail. It started like any other lazy Friday after school. The weather was perfect. Soft spring breeze. The sky painted in fading orange hues as the sun leaned toward the horizon. Me, Adam, and my two closest friends, Lucas and Josh, were walking out of school when Lucas suggested we take the old shortcut trail through the woods. "We'll get home before dark," he said confidently. We'd taken that path countless times before. It was a narrow dirt trail cutting through the small forest between the school and our neighborhood. Usually it took about 5 minutes, tops, and was way quicker than the main road. The first few minutes felt just like always. We joked around, pushed each other playfully, talked about our teachers, about stupid rumors going around school. The air was fresh, the birds chirped overhead. But then, 10 minutes passed. We were still walking, still on the same trail, still surrounded by the same tall pine trees. Josh was the first to notice. Guys, shouldn't we be out by now?" We stopped. Lucas tried to act cool. "Maybe we're just walking slower today." But we all knew that wasn't it. We turned around, and that's when I felt something twist inside me. The trail behind us looked exactly the same. No turn, no entrance, just the same narrow path, disappearing into the same wall of trees. I said, "Maybe we should head back?" They nodded. We walked, faster, trying to laugh it off. But after several more minutes, nothing changed. Same trees, same shadows, same broken branch lying across the trail that we'd already passed. Josh swore under his breath. Lucas started calling it a prank, but his voice cracked halfway through the joke. That's when we pulled out our phones. No signal, no GPS, not even the time changed. The sun hovered in the exact same spot, like the world had stopped moving. I remember feeling cold sweat roll down my back. "Let's run," I said. So we did. We sprinted, heart pounding, legs burning, until we couldn't anymore. When we stopped to catch our breath, we were still in the same place. The trail stretched ahead, And behind, Lucas whispered, "What the hell is this?" And that's when I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps. Not ours, not an echo. They came from behind us. We whipped around, no one. But the sound didn't stop. Lucas's face turned pale. Josh grabbed my arm. We stood frozen, listening. A faint breathing sound mixed with the steps. Closer. "I think it's following us," Lucas whispered. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat felt frozen. We were trapped on a path that wouldn't end with something or someone stalking every move we made. We stood there for a moment that felt like forever. 3 kids in the middle of a trail that refused to end, surrounded by a forest that seemed to hold its breath. The footsteps didn't stop. Slow, steady, crunching softly over the dried leaves behind us. Lucas whispered, "We need to move now." We started walking, not running this time. But the sound behind us didn't fall back. It kept pace. Every few steps, I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. Just endless trees. Josh muttered, "This can't be real." Then, a soft chuckle echoed between the trees. I swear on everything. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't one of us. It was low, gravelly, and too close. We broke into a sprint. This time we didn't look back. We ran like our lives depended on it. Branches whipped across our faces. The ground felt like it was swallowing our feet. The trail twisted and turned, but it never ended. Suddenly, Josh screamed. I turned just in time to see him trip over something root. He fell hard. I skidded to a stop and rushed back to help him. But Lucas, his eyes went wide. He pointed. Behind us, a figure, tall, thin. Its face, blurred like a shadow, swallowed it. It stood just beyond the trail, half hidden, among the trees, motionless. I froze. Josh scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. What is that?" The figure tilted its head, slowly. Lucas grabbed my arm, his voice shaking. "We're not getting out of here, are we?" The shadow took a step forward. That snapped us out of it. We turned and ran, harder than before. We ran until the trees blurred, until our lungs burned, until every part of me screamed to stop. And then we burst into a small clearing, but it wasn't an exit. It was the same place we started, the same spot, same bent tree, same fallen branch. We had run in a circle. Josh dropped to his knees. Lucas started cursing under his breath. I just stood there, staring at the silent trail stretching out before us again. And from somewhere deep inside the woods, the footsteps started again. This time, from every direction. We weren't alone, and escape was never an option. Story 5. Never Alone in the Woods, Forest. Escape horror story. It was supposed to be a normal day at school, but everything changed within minutes. The fire alarm went off, followed by screams, then gunshots. Students started running in all directions. I didn't even have time to think. I jumped out of my seat, shoved past the others, and sprinted towards the back exit. I ran outside into the open field, the cold wind hitting my face, my heart beating like a drum inside my chest. I didn't look back, I just ran until I reached the edge of the forest. My lungs burned as I stumbled into the trees, hoping the thick woods would hide me. I slowed down, catching my breath, my ears still ringing from the panic. I kept whispering to myself, "It's okay, I'm safe now. I'm far away." The sounds of the school faded behind me. The air was silent, except for the soft sound of leaves crunching. At first I thought it was mine, but I was standing still. The sound of footsteps continued, matching. The exact moment my heart thudded, I turned around. There was no one. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" Silence. I took a few steps forward. The sound followed me, step, step, step. Every time I stopped, it stopped. My hands started shaking. I told myself it was just an animal. Maybe a deer. But why would a deer follow my steps exactly? A cold shiver crawled up my spine. I started walking faster, then running. But no matter how fast I ran, the footsteps followed. And that's when I realized I wasn't alone in the woods. I don't know how long I ran. It felt like hours. My legs burned, my throat was raw. But I didn't stop. I couldn't, because every time I slowed down, every time I dared to think I'd outrun it, the footsteps were still there. They weren't heavy, they weren't fast. They were exactly like mine, matching my rhythm, matching my fear. At first, I thought maybe I was just panicking, hearing echoes in the forest. But soon I realized this wasn't in my head, because when I jumped over a fallen log, I heard another jump right next to me. When I slipped on wet leaves, I heard a second slip, but no thud. Who or what could move like that? Like my shadow, but breathing. I screamed, loud, "Leave me alone!" My voice cracked through the trees, but nothing answered. No birds fluttered, no wind rustled. Only that sound, steps in the dirt. I crashed into a narrow path lined with old pine trees. The trail stretched endlessly, ahead, twisting into the dark. The air here felt thicker, heavier, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I stopped, dead still. For a heartbeat, I heard nothing, just the thud of my pulse in my ears. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just one step right behind me, slow, deliberate. I felt ice crawl up my spine. I turned around, fast, no one. But the dirt behind me, there were footprints. Next to mine, bare footprints, fresh, pressed into the mud. They weren't mine. I stumbled back in shock, tripping over a root, and fell hard onto the ground. And that's when I heard it, right by my ear. A whisper, a soft, calm, almost playful whisper. "Keep running." I scrambled to my feet, heart in my throat. I ran again, faster, harder than before. But no matter how fast I went, no matter how many turns I made, I kept hearing the same steps always beside me. The whisper didn't stop. Sometimes it was in my ear, sometimes ahead of me, sometimes behind. "You're never alone, not here." The sky darkened. The forest seemed to close in. I saw shadows dart between the trees, shapes I couldn't explain, eyes glinting in the dark, faces that vanished. When I looked straight at them, I started crying. Real, ugly sobs. But I couldn't stop. I knew if I stopped, it would catch me, and I'd never leave these woods again. I ran until I saw the lights of the town, ahead, glowing faintly beyond the trees. But even then, even as I neared safety, I could still hear the whisper, "You'll be back." And the footsteps never left. Sometimes these events aren't just coincidences. You may escape, but the fear stays with you forever. And these stories will never be forgotten.